trendy, there's cafes, there's art, there's sports. It's got everything you want except the sunshine. Welcome to Melbourne.
Okay, so in our last video, we got as far north as Chinatown. Love Chinatown. Now we're gonna keep going further north. First up, we're gonna stop at the Queen Victoria Market. This market takes up a full city block and there's lots to see. So one part is just a traditional market. So you have your butcher hall. So that's where you can buy your meats and like meats you have never seen before. You'll have a produce section. So this is an outside market, lots of produce vendors. So we got some amazing fruits. Actually, jujubes were in season, or jujubes. I'm not sure how to say them. They're delicious little fruits. Were in season when we visited, so we made sure to get some. This is the kind of place where you want to wander around, just get whatever inspires you. I get it if you're traveling, you're not going to be buying like the broccolini and whatnot to cook a full meal, but you'll still find lots of great snacks to have. Then, really exciting, is the food truck section. So these are like restaurants and food trucks where you can just grab bites to eat. Bites, many bites, so many bites. So we always stop at the American Donut Kitchen. These are hot jam-filled donuts covered in sugar, which are so good. There's always a line, don't be deterred, just wait in the line. They've picked up their pace a lot over the years. Get some donuts, you can get crepes, you can get so many different kinds of foods. You can get Ethiopian food, you can get ice cream, you can get whatever you want here. So I would plan a meal here. I'd just be like, yeah, we're having lunch at the Queen Victoria Markets. And then just keep wandering around. You will see there's like a stall that sells eggs and they have like 20 different kinds of eggs. I didn't even know there were so many kinds of eggs. So really a worthwhile experience to wander around the whole markets. Now, outside the Queen Victoria Markets, you're still in the free tram zone, so you can hop on the tram, go anywhere you want. Also, across the street from the tram line, look both ways, don't get hit by a tram, you will see a site that you see quite a bit in Melbourne. And that is like a green fence and it'll say toilets. And on your first visit, you might be like, why is there a fence and like no actual toilets? And it is because Melbourne is famous for having previously had underground toilets. So let's go back in the time machine. Let's go to 1851, let's just say. Women wore big, whatever they, corset and the foofy skirt and all of that. And there was nowhere where a woman could pee in public. Like, let's just get real about this. There were no public toilet facilities. Men had had urinals since 1901, which was basically like a wall with kind of like a little backing to it. So they could go pee. Women could not go pee. No one could do number two. So in 1859, Melbourne built toilets. Revolutionary, right? Gosh, look how far we've come in the world. So these toilets were underground. So these are the fences that you'll see today. So most of the toilets are no longer like operational, but you would have gone underground and these fences, these green fences are up kind of, and they'll say ladies and they'll say gents as a historical marker. I think the first one was at Elizabeth and Swanson, but you'll see these throughout the city. So Melbourne was really considered ahead of its time to have toilet facilities and a tram. I mean, isn't that all you want from a city? So have a look at these. You'll see them around because they're a really cool historical reminder. All right, also in this area is the Melbourne Gaol. Gaol, spelt G-A-O-L. It's like goal with the vowels flipped. I don't know, this is how they do it in Australia. So this is the Melbourne Gaol. Over 100 people were hanged here, including Ned Kelly, who is like a really famous Australian kind of like Wild West, terrorizing the land kind of guy. He was captured and hanged at the jail. The jail is now a museum, so you can go in, have a look around, and it's also just a really beautiful building right in the center of the city if you want to have a wander. Outside of the jail are two of my favorite little bits of Melbourne. One is the 888 monument. So, did you know, you may, in the olden days, people used to just work really, really long days. So if you worked at a factory and your boss said, hey, it's a 14-hour shift day, you just have to do it or you'd lose your job and not be able to feed your family. So Melbourne was the epicenter for what we would call modern workers' rights. So there were protests and the 888 movement started, which is 8 hours for work, 8 hours for leisure, 8 hours for sleep. And there's a monument commemorating when these labor laws actually got put into effect. So that's super cool, right from the jail. Have a look. And then, if you're standing in front of the monument, look across the street at this hole-in-the-wall Chinese restaurant, and it's one of the highlights, I think. Biang Biang is the name of a kind of Western Chinese noodle, and it's onomatopoeic. So it's called Biang Biang because the way they make the noodles is by banging them on the table, and they're a very wide noodle. And the thing about Biang Biang noodles is that Biang, that character, is one of the most complicated characters in all of Chinese writing. So you may know Chinese uses characters instead of what we use, which is an alphabet. And so the characters have a certain number of strokes. A very typical Chinese character, like if you're thinking about like fire or water, would have, maybe 5 strokes, 10 strokes, things get complicated. Biang has 57 strokes. It's nuts. And so in the early part of the century, when China simplified a lot of its characters, what we often see now is simplified Chinese. And so the characters got a lot of stroke reductions. And so a lot of Biang Biang noodle places don't put the full 57 stroke characters up because it's Biang Biang, so it's 2 of the 57 stroke characters. This place across the street from the 888 monument does. Yep. And it's like $12 noodles. So good. Do that. At least look at the sign. I value the sign. All right, and then just a block down the road are the public baths. So we're back in the olden days. People didn't have indoor plumbing. You would go like Roman style, not much changed during those 2,000 years. You would go to a public bath, take a bath, shower, clean up. We don't do that anymore, but the building is gorgeous. And the city of Melbourne, very clever, has turned it into the public pool. So when you go in, I think there's 2 or 3 pools. So there's I think there's 3, yeah. The kiddie pool, there's like a longer lap pool, it has a sauna, it has all the stuff you'd want. If you're traveling with your family and you just want like a little chillax time, because cities can be really overwhelming, the public baths are a great place to go. Melbourne also has some really great playgrounds, so that's a win. You can just pay a day entry rate, go in, go swimming, relax. The outside of the building also, you'll see this around Melbourne, it has different colors of brick, and that was very much of the style in the mid-1800s. So it's a dark red brick and then like a white brick, and you'll see that around the city as well, which is great. Okay, so let's head north just a little bit into one of the little neighborhoods in Melbourne. So Lygon Street in Carlton is it's just on the northern edge of the city, and this is the Italian center of Melbourne. So traditionally, when the Italian immigrants came over following like World War II, they settled on Lygon Street. This would have been huge with restaurants and what do Italian people like? Cafes! So this street is regarded as kind of the home of Melbourne's cafe culture. I've heard it's controversial whether that's really where it started, because Australia had coffee before the Italians came over, but Let's roll with it. So today, when you walk up Lygon Street, it's really lovely. You'll find bookstores, you'll find Italian restaurants, you'll also find a lot of Asian restaurants. It's just like a really lovely community feel and worth a visit to see what it's like to live in Melbourne outside of the main CBD. Then just turn east a bit, so there's Carlton, like the neighborhood, and then there's Carlton Gardens, which is another huge green area right in the center of the city. So in the last video, I talked to you about Fitzroy Gardens, which is another really lovely, huge green space in the middle of the city, and this is Carlton Gardens. Carlton Gardens is a bit closer to the city, and it has two great things in it. One is the Royal Exhibition Building, which has a few great records. So it was built in 1879, and it is one of the finest remaining buildings from the exhibition period. I didn't know this was a thing, but apparently, I mean, it's true if you think about it. We had lots of world exhibitions, right? So Chicago had one and Edinburgh had one, and these were just like huge world fairs where everyone would come and look at stuff, I guess like the Olympics, except with inventions. How cool is that? The Olympics of inventions. And so Melbourne had one and built this big, beautiful building, but a lot of other cities, silly them, tore the buildings down. So if you go to Edinburgh, there's like a big, beautiful park and like a pole that like or a sundial or something very small that signifies where the building once stood. Well, Melbourne just kept the big, gorgeous building with the dome that was modeled after like the dome in Florence. So it's beautiful. It's lovely. They have events there. And then if you turn to the right, you'll see the Melbourne Museum. So the Melbourne Museum is really lovely. It's a like natural history museum. So it's got the dinosaurs, it's got the gems, but then they also have really amazing exhibits. So a couple years ago, we went to a Lego exhibit, which was fantastic. This is another really great break. Like, you know, kids get tired sightseeing sometimes. You can be like, oh, we're doing the afternoon at the museum, and it's absolutely worth it. Now we're gonna go east just a little bit more to Collingwood. Collingwood, honestly, all I knew about it before visiting was that they had a famous football team, but there's so much more. So we're going to Collingwood because it has, sorry, I'm a real sucker for world records, the Southern Hemisphere's tallest mural. Okay, so this one is painted by Matt Adnante. He's a gorgeous muralist. You'll see lots of his work around Melbourne. You'll see one of his pieces in Hosier Lane. He's in Sydney, all over the place. And this is a really, really tall mural on the side of a building. And so that's lovely. Also, what I think is really cool in this neighborhood is there's something called Art Bank. And so this is the Melbourne office. There's another in Sydney. And Art Bank is a government run department that buys artwork from Australian artists and rents it out to like office buildings or, you know, like public halls or whoever wants to rent art but can't afford to buy it wholesale, you know, buy it outright, they can rent it from Art Bank. So it's such a good initiative. It's completely self-sustaining, so they make enough from renting out the artwork to fund all of their new acquisitions. And during their opening hours, you can just go and look at the work that hasn't been rented out. So I highly recommend that. Not like you're short on art museums going to Melbourne. If you head south a little bit, there's the National Galleries of Victoria, and they have the Ian Potter building for the National Galleries of Victoria. So you're not short on art, but Art Bank is a really cool one to visit too. Okay, I've already taken you south. Let's just go for it. So the reason I went to Melbourne on this most recent trip was to see the Yayoi Kusama exhibit at the National Galleries of Victoria, which is just called the NGV. It was so worth it. It's the largest collection of her work. By the time you watch this, it will probably have finished, but it will be the largest exhibition that the gallery has ever put on, with close to 500,000 visitors coming through. She beat Picasso, which is really cool for like a 92-year-old Japanese woman. Love that. But there are always really cool exhibits coming through the national galleries. The galleries themselves, including the Ian Potter building in Fed Square, are free to go in. And then you have these exhibits that you usually have to book and get like a timed entry to because they're so popular. Two more things. One, the MCG, also called the G. You have to shorten everything in Australia. So if you are visiting and you have the chance, I highly recommend to go to a sporting event. The MCG is the Melbourne Cricket Ground, but they don't just play cricket there, they play football as well. It's a 100,000 person stadium. I think it's like 102,000 because you can't just end with a round number, that'd be weird. And it's the largest stadium in Australia. What I love most about it is it's right in the heart of Melbourne. Right next to it is the tennis where they play the Australian Open. And so if you're visiting, it's like really practical to just walk 10 minutes and go to a game. It's a beautiful stadium, it's lovely. They also have a sports museum inside, which is really cool. And so definitely go watch. The most famous event, I would say, is Boxing Day, which is the day after Christmas. There's a Boxing Day cricket match, which takes 5 days. Really good vibes. Tickets are affordable. You don't have to go on the first day. You could just show up, like get tickets for the 4th day and have a really good time. Learn a few of these really different and interesting Australian sports. I mean, some of them which they got from Britain, like cricket, but also like Aussie rules football, a completely different, amazing sport where the players run like 15 kilometers, so like 10 miles per game playing football. It's great. So I didn't set you up properly for this, but the MCG, the giant stadium, is on like the Yarra River. So there's this river that runs along the south of Melbourne, and you'll walk back and forth across it. And the area on the south of the river is called Southbank. So the river is lovely. You can walk across it from the city just to go to the south. This is where you'll go to the art gallery. And all along the South Bank are lots of lovely restaurants and cafes. And it's kind of like, I sort of get the vibe of like San Antonio's river walk, right? You're just walking along a beautiful river. Great place to have a drink, great place to take an evening stroll. And so there we have it. Over the past 3 videos, I've given you a deep dive into Melbourne, and you know what? We didn't even go that deep. There is so much more, and I'm going to have to go back again to get more video because there's so many hidden gems in Melbourne, and it's a really lovely city to visit. You probably already know this, but I'm a tour guide in Sydney, and so I am happy to walk you around all of these lovely sites in Sydney, but the company I work for, Fit City Tours, is actually based in Melbourne. So if you are going to Melbourne and you want an amazing tour guide to show you around, particularly the laneways with donuts, yeah, you do want that, then I've dropped a link below to Fit City Tours because our team in Melbourne is really amazing, and it's a great city to get shown around in because there are all these little things that you would miss if you just go on your own. And so thanks for watching. Drop any spots I missed in the comments because I'm going to be going back. I need to know more, and I'll be sharing it with you. See you next time.